Deputy Speaker. I rise in support of the Veterans Affairs legislation amendment supporting the wellbeing of veterans and their families Bill of 2020. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've never served in uniform. I haven't had the privilege of doing so, but I do represent a cohort of veterans in my community, in my electorate. The Sunshine Coast has reportedly around 15,000 veterans living on it and in it. And it's one of the largest veteran populations in the country. And quite naturally, why would you want to live anywhere else than the Sunshine Coast? It is God's paradise. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, I join with the member for Burt in his view that we as a government, we as a parliament, need to do everything to ensure that we look after our veterans. Our veterans, there's not too many jobs where you are called upon to go to work, perhaps be injured in training, perhaps be killed, or be asked to kill someone else. Military service is a unique service, and this government takes its responsibility to veterans very, very seriously. Just last year, the federal government paid some $11.5 billion in services to our veterans, in looking after them. That's a substantial sum of money, but it's an investment that we make with pride because we believe in our veterans. This bill goes a considerable way into looking after veterans. It establishes the Veterans Family Advocate in Schedule 1. It establishes an employment program to help veterans transition to employment once they discharge in Schedule 2, and it provides a quarterly energy supplement to those veterans who had missed out in Schedule 3, and I'll come into that later. I think at the outset, Madam Deputy Speaker, no conversation around veterans and their care would be complete without addressing the issues that some face in relation to mental health. I say some because I think it is it's incumbent upon us in this place and in our own electorates and in the broader community to put things into perspective. Whilst I acknowledge and I applaud the discussion around mental health for veterans and in the broader community, we need to be very, very careful that we do not establish a misnomer or a misconception that if you have served in the ADF, when you discharge, that you're broken, because nothing could be further from the truth. On the one hand, we talk about the importance of acknowledging mental health issues, but then on the other hand, we talk about the importance of giving every opportunity for ADF veterans to seek meaningful employment. Is it any wonder that not enough businesses are employing veterans? Because we talk so much about mental health and veterans that I fear that we're setting up a misconception in the broader public that if you are a veteran, you're broken. And I'm concerned that employers may be fearful about what they may be employing, the person they may be employing, and the problems that might otherwise come with that. Veterans bring so many skills and values and attributes to their task, whatever that task might be. They bring the values of commitment, of trust, of honour, of getting the job done, not being clock watchers. They're task-oriented. And for any employer out there, and for my colleagues in here, I implore you, next time you have a job vacancy, I implore you to specifically search out and try and employ a veteran. You will not be disappointed. And that goes for my colleagues in this place. This may sound surprising to some who may be listening to this, but there are many similarities between service in the military and service in politics. And what I've found in my short time in this place of 4 years, I've employed probably around 4 or 5 veterans in that time. And I have found them to be exceptional employees. And they do bring a great amount of vision and wisdom and dedication to the role that they fill in my office. So I want to encourage members of Parliament. Don't just encourage members of the business community to employ a veteran if you aren't doing it yourself. Lead by example and employ a veteran. The vast majority of veterans are not broken men and women. The vast majority of veterans will make outstanding employees. And I want to send that challenge out to all employers, including members of Parliament, today. Madam Deputy Speaker, that said, I do acknowledge, and I want to acknowledge the member for Herbert, who's just entered into the chamber, for his service. I want to acknowledge the member for Canning. I want to acknowledge the member for Stirling and Braddon and Solomon. This is not a bipartisan thing. There are members of those opposite, including the retired member for Eden Monero, who is an outstanding member of this House and an outstanding member of the ADF. This is not a party politics thing. Members of the ADF join the ALP or the Liberal or National Party, and I want to acknowledge the service that they have made to this place and their countries. But we have to acknowledge that, unfortunately, we do damage some of our men and women. We damage them because of the, not all of them, but some of them, because of the physical demands we ask of them. But it's not just the physical demands we ask of them, it's the mental scars that some of them incur as a result of their service. Madam Deputy Speaker, a constituent of mine by the name of Peter Kennedy, at a function I held recently, said these words about veterans. He said, "We have a few scratches. Some of us are a little bit bent out of shape. But if you work with us and help us back into shape, you're going to get a great product for a long time." The sad reality is that when members of the ADF are currently serving, actually I'll just rephrase that. When members of the ADF are currently serving, they have, particularly men, have a 48% lower chance of dying by suicide than the general population. I'll say that again. A recent study found that ADF personnel, whilst they are serving, and this is unfortunately or fortunately, depending on which way you look at it, was restricted to men because there weren't at that time any women that had taken their own lives. But men were 48% lower chance to take their life whilst they are serving in the ADF. But once they discharge, that 48% lower chance jumps to an 18% higher chance. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, why is that? Why is it that we see that jump? I'm not a psychologist, but in my view, I think that many, particularly young men who have served in the ADF, they may have longed for nothing other than to, say, be an infantry soldier or to serve in the RAAF or the Royal Australian Navy. That may have been their life's ambition. But for one reason or another, whether it be at their own volition or because they may have been injured, or perhaps it may even be a disciplinary matter, young men in particular that discharge in their mid-20s or lower are significantly at risk of self-harm. Now, why is that? They have, whilst they are in the ADF, they have a sense of mission, they have a sense of purpose. They belong to a tribe that will back them to the hilt. Their mates will die for them. But when they leave and discharge the ADF, all of a sudden they're on their own. And they lose that sense of mission, they lose that sense of purpose, and they lose that tribe. Or at least they may feel like they lose that tribe. And many young men in particular have a great deal of difficulty in dealing with that. Now, the vast majority of them will recover and go on and lead very full and meaningful lives, but some will struggle. And that's where this bill, with its introduction of the Veteran Family Advocate, will assist, because this is a statutory function, Mr Deputy Speaker. The Veteran Family Advocate will consult with families, because families they play the most significant role in the recuperation and recovery of our young veterans. They are the closest to the veteran, and they are the ones that can do the most beneficial work with them. The Veteran Family Advocate will work with ex-service organisations. They'll participate in key bodies, or the Veteran Family Advocate will participate in key bodies such as the Council for Women and Families United by Defence Service and the Female Veterans and Veterans Families Policy Forum. But perhaps the most, in my view, the most important thing that will come out of this bill is the Support for Employment program in the transition to civilian employment. Because, Mr Deputy Speaker, for ADF personnel, just think about it. 1 minute they might be flying, driving, sailing, multi-million or multi-billion-dollar equipment. This government, this country entrusts to them such a great responsibility to serve their nation, but to be able to do that with significant assets. And yet when they leave, some can't get a job. How demoralising would that be for those particularly young men and women? So this measure in Schedule 2 will complement the Prime Minister's Veterans Employment Program, and it'll provide eligible former ADF personnel with both pre- and post-employment assistance. This is so important. We talk in this place about the best form of welfare is a job. And I want to encourage all employers to walk the talk, including those in this building. Walk the talk and give a job to a veteran.
For Fisher.